He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I hope you had a good weekend. Man, I'll tell you what, there is a lot of hell breaking loose all over the world. We're going to talk about Iran, now in Syria. You know, that guy that was part of, what was it, ISIS, I guess he was, or Al-Qaeda. And everybody told us he's reformed. He's told our government he's reformed. And so all these sanctions that were placed on Syria were dropped. You got an envoy there, Thomas Barak, who is a disgrace and a disaster. I've called him out many times on this program and on social media. He's been an apologist for a lot of these terror organizations. I feel he's deceived the American people on many occasions. Again, it's not a secret. You know that I feel this way. And even more, but what's happening right now is Erdogan, who is the fascist, Islamist, genocidal maniac who's destroyed Turkey and their government, is behind this effort, working with this phony reformer, this terrorist who runs Syria, to ethnically cleanse the Kurds. And about 2 hours ago, the main prison in which about 5,000 ISIS prisoners are held, did you see that, Mr. Producer? They're gone now. They've been released. That's right. Gone and been released. Now, to make matters even worse, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, you should know, have opposed the United States taking military action to help stop the Iranian Holocaust that's taking place, and it's still taking place. And Qatar and Saudi Arabia have persuaded our administration to drop all the sanctions against Syria. And so you could say they have blood on their hands too. Meanwhile, we've set up this board of peace to deal with Hamas in Gaza, and among the countries invited are Qatar and Turkey to serve on the board. And Benjamin Netanyahu obviously is going to protect his people in his country, and he said no. They didn't even tell us, the administration, that they were appointing these two, and there will be no Turkish troops or Qatari troops of any kind in Gaza. Now remember, Gaza used to be part of Israel, even ancient Israel, 4,000 years ago. And the Israelis carved it out for the Palestinians, who then, of course, used it to kill Israelis. And Israel says, we're not going to allow Turkey and Qatar, the two biggest supporters of Hamas, still protecting their billionaire bosses, to put an army on our border after we lost 1,000 troops, which is equivalent to us losing 35,000 troops. It's a country of 9-10 million people. So that's a mess as far as I'm concerned. But I want to circle back. First things first, and that is the Iranian people. And they're being slaughtered. They're being slaughtered by the thousands. I wouldn't be surprised if we're at 30, 35,000 by now. Hundreds of thousands of casualties. The manner in which these Islamists treat women in particular and young people is just so subhuman. They've been shooting them in the face, in the eyes with pellets to blind them. They've been infiltrating, telling them to go down an alley, and then they go down an alley and they murder them. They're burning the buildings that they're in. They're dragging them out of homes. They brought in now thousands of militia, terrorist militia out of Iraq and Hezbollah. So they have their stormtroopers, and then they have the SS that they're bringing in. And these people are unarmed. It is a horrendous thing that's going on. Horrendous. I want you to listen to something Friday night. I'm going to be spending many Friday nights on Hannity's program. Not every Friday night, but many. This went viral. I don't do things to go viral. I just do things that I think are right. Let's play this. Cut one. Go.
I feel very passionate about this. We lost 20 to 30,000 students. They're in line to execute many, many more. And when Donald Trump says help is on the way, that is their only lifeline, sadly.
You know, Sean, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to talk to my fellow Americans for a minute. The vast majority of these people who protested and are being murdered and held in prisons, being tortured and raped, are young people the age of your children and grandchildren. You go online and you look at these photos, you see 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds dead, their eyes wide open, looking into the sky. They had to wonder, my God, what's happening to me? Their prisons are filled with thousands and thousands of these young people who want what our kids want on a Friday night in America, to go to a movie, not to be forced to cover their hair and their face, to dance, maybe have a drink if they're old enough to go out on a date. This is what they want. This is Persia. The Persian people are Western people. That's what they are. Do you know what? Iran today is a concentration camp. The lights are off. The electricity's off. It's dark. There's no communication except for Qatar's communication system, Al Jazeera. People are being dragged out of their homes tonight as I speak. They're hiding in their homes. They're being executed summarily. The prisoners, who are the age of your children and grandchildren, are being tortured and raped. It's not 3,000 dead. I just read it's 23,000 dead, and the number's going up. You can't see there. You can't hear there. Maybe they're not hanging people, but they have bullets. They're killing people, and they are abusing these people. Now, people say, what is it our business? Now, sometimes there are things we cannot do. The Uyghurs in China and so forth and so on. You just said that this guy Khomeini has ordered the assassination of our president. They've tried to assassinate our president. He should be taken out. When you try to take out the president of the United States, since when do we tolerate that from any 7th century barbarian primitive? Not today, not yesterday, and we shouldn't take it tomorrow. And we shouldn't be here wondering what America should do. This is a regime that said, yeah, you took out our nukes, but you can't take out our knowledge about nukes, and we're going to keep building them. And we're going to attack the United States. They've killed 1,000 Americans over the years through Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, I ask my fellow Americans, how much more of this crap are we going to take from these terrorists? How much more? They are slaughtering these young people. They're unarmed. They're brutalizing them. We said, protest, we're coming to the rescue. Well, that's what we Americans do when we can. And the president, I believe in all my heart, is going to keep his word because that's what he does. And when you see these young people in body bags all over the damn place, and when you see these young people staring into the sky, dead. And when these young people are in these prisons saying, my God, where's my mother and my father? Can somebody help me? Do you hear them, America? Do you hear them? I hear them screaming. We need to do something about this.
And Sean agreed. He's a good man. As time goes on, you know, less and less attention paid to this, but in Iran, it goes on. There's a Holocaust taking place in Iran. A Holocaust. And the full extent of it won't be known until that government falls, God willing. Now the president told the protesters to keep protesting, that help would be on the way. And I believe with all my heart he's a man of his word. And there's every indication that help is on the way. Unfortunately, it takes time to bring armies, not one, but multiple, and navies into the region because they had left for the most part. And you have to be prepared for a breakout of war in case that takes place. But you need to bring in, obviously, very powerful offensive capabilities, give the president options, and you need to have defensive capabilities. And in the case of Israel, for instance, they need to make sure they have enough missiles to take missiles out of the sky. And so all these things are going on, I believe. This regime needs to go. There was a third threat today from the regime to assassinate our president. You just cannot allow countries to do that. This can't go on like this. It's not going to go on, I hope. I pray. The Iranian people are Western people. They're not Arabs. They're Persians. And the Shah was toppled, not because, as bloated Bannon, that buffoon, says, the Iranians allowed it. It's because Carter allowed it. That's what happened. I get so sick of these buffoons who spew their stupidity to endorse their lunatic agendas. And you'll notice when the going gets tough, there's a lot less of their noise that people want to hear. Because we already have an enemy, and the enemy from within joins with them. I haven't heard these people really complain very much about Khomeini, have you? But Qatar's in on it, Saudi Arabia's in on it, Turkey's in on it, they're all in on it. I want you to hear from Reza Pahlavi, who is the exiled crown prince. We're going to address this and continue for a bit. And I want to talk about what's happening to the Kurds now, who have fought by our side against ISIS. Many of them died. These are warriors. Erdogan's trying to wipe them out. Now Syria's trying to wipe them out because they're in Syria and Turkey. We have a lot of friends in the Middle East. In addition to Israel, the Persian people are our friends. The Kurds are our friends. The Jews are our friends. The Christians there, as well as the Jews. A lot of these minorities there, they're our friends. They're our allies. It's amazing, isn't it? The first religion of the big three, Judaism, then Christianity, and a long way off, Islam. And yet they want to wipe out the remaining Jews in the area. They've been wiping out the Christians, and they claim all the land is theirs. Now, isn't that absurd, Mr. Producer? They're the last in. And yet they claim all the holy sites of the Jews and the Christians. Well, they're not their holy sites. They don't belong to them, and they don't get to have them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're setting up this Board of Peace. It's an odd name for many reasons. Under Phase 2 of the plan, Hamas was supposed to surrender and be disarmed. Well, now Phase 2 has been changed. The Israelis have followed it. to the letter, but Hamas won't surrender and be disarmed. So now the thinking is, well, let's start rebuilding it. Let's have a board of peace, and then they'll disarm that way. Israelis are watching. And then we announce, without telling the Israelis, that Qatar and Turkey and now Pakistan are going to be part of the Board of Peace. These are obviously heavy Muslim countries, but more than that, in the case of Qatar and Turkey, they're run by genocidal maniacs who have funded Hamas, fund terrorism in the Muslim Brotherhood, who have rejected even being seen in the same room with Benjamin Netanyahu. And so Netanyahu is supposed to bow, say, okay, whatever you want. They'll be on the Board of Peace. You can bring their soldiers and their military into Gaza. Sure, right on our border. The problem is, he said, no, we're not doing that. Not one of their soldiers is going to be in Gaza. And every single political party in Israel, including the hardcore leftists, except the Arab parties, of course, are united in this. All the way from the right, all the way to the left. They said, no way. Now, you know, it might help if we would actually listen to the only democracy in the region from time to time. They warned us about the phony al-Qaeda ISIS terrorist as a reformer. They said he's not a reformer. He's killing Christians. He's killing Jews. He's killing other people there. Oh, yeah. And we have an envoy there by the name of Thomas. What the hell is his name? Barak. As you know, I'm probably the only host on any platform who's been talking about this guy and despises him. He's been a mouthpiece for that regime in Syria. He's been a mouthpiece, really, for, as far as I'm concerned, Hezbollah. And he's been a mouthpiece for Erdogan, and he trashes Netanyahu all the time. I don't know what that real estate guy has over Netanyahu, but Netanyahu's been in that neighborhood a long time. And he said, you can't trust them over there. And the IDF went in to protect the Christians, and we verbally attacked them for doing it. And Erdogan, they've been warning us about him. The guy wants F-35s. I sure as hell hope he's not using any of our jets against the Kurds. For God's sakes, the Kurds are our allies. So rather than constantly pushing Netanyahu, why don't we listen to him every now and then? I'll be right back.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
We're moving fast tonight. Hang with me. As you always do, and we're very appreciative of that. The Kurds are a minority in every country they're in. They're in Turkey, about 25 million of them. They're in Syria. And Erdogan, who is an Islamist, he started out as sort of a backbencher, the head of a party that wasn't taken very seriously. National Socialists, by the way. The National Socialist Islamic Party, something to that effect. And you know what that sounds like, and he's every bit of that. Keeps talking about wiping the Jews out of the Middle East. This guy's in NATO. Because Turkey used to be a wonderful, mostly secular society. Don't get me wrong, there were Muslims there practicing their faith, but you didn't have political Islam. And Ataturk was the great hero there, great war hero, great leader, who in many ways moved Turkey into direction towards the West. Well, long story short, Erdogan comes in, and he pretends that there was an assassination attempt, and he blows out all the generals, he blows out all the chiefs of police. I mean, tens of thousands of military and police, disappears them, as the Democrats like to say, slaughters them, puts them in prisons. And he uses terrorists to fight his wars, as well as his military, but mostly terrorists. He's responsible in part for taking Assad out. He backed ISIS, and he backed the current the current terrorist thug who is now in charge of Syria, who we've been pretending is some kind of reformer. Oh, yes, he went to reform school. He went from Al-Qaeda and ISIS right into reform school, and now he's a Westerner. And that's what this clown, Thomas Barak, has been pushing everywhere he goes. And when Netanyahu would say, wait a minute, we got to, no, now's your opportunity. Now's your opportunity to make a deal. What's wrong with you, Netanyahu? All you want is war all the time. You warmongers, you know. And what's he doing? First of all, they were slaughtering Christians and Jews and other minorities not that long ago. And again, Netanyahu sent in the IDF to try and protect as many as he could and brought as many of them into Israel as possible. And he came under attack from this guy, from our envoy, among others. Axios in the media. You got a guy, Ravid, whatever's his name, Mr. Producer. Barak. Is everybody called Barak over there? I don't know. Barack this, Barack that, Barack Obama. Anyway, and he's a mouthpiece for the enemy. Our enemy, Israel's enemy, the enemy of freedom. Used to write at a paper called Haaretz, which is really left-wing kook stuff, almost Marxist. And then they took him at Axios, where he's basically the lapdog for the leakers. As long as they're leaking against Israel and Netanyahu, he's happy to put it in there. And he's wrong 98% of the time, but sometimes you can glean information from him. But he's not a journalist. He's a fraud, a phony, and a fool. The 3 Fs. Anyway, I know phony's not an F, it's a joke. Anyway, so this guy's a joke too. So some senior official anonymously, quote-unquote, according to Barak Rabid at Axios, said, look, too bad for Israel. It's our game now. It's our game now. Why, did we fight in Gaza? I'm trying to figure this out. What do you mean it's our game now? And so, you know, that's the kind of stuff that's going on here. And so Qatar would be on the board of peace. Isn't that an oxymoron? Turkey, which is now slaughtering our allies, the Kurds, slaughtering them. There's a prison with 5,000 ISIS prisoners in there. Excuse me. There were 5,000 ISIS prisoners in there. You know what happened? They released them. The new reform head of the government of Syria, working with the NATO member who wants F-35s, Erdogan, they released them. Coming to a neighborhood near you, like all the other Islamists. The people in Iran, do you know who they call out for, Mr. Producer? Netanyahu. You know who the Kurds are calling out for right now? Netanyahu. The problem is Israel is strong, but they're not big enough to take on every one of these countries. They just can't. And in Syria, they're getting protection from our envoy. I guess. Congress should immediately put the sanctions back on Syria. I mean, that's not even good enough. But do it. Do it. What are you waiting for? You know, in 3 weeks, forget it. Do it now. And we need to hit Khomeini with one of those bombers, with a couple of those bombs, and send him off to hell where that man belongs. 86 years old. Slaughtering all those people and those women. Those girls, I can't stand looking at those pictures. And the videos. And the horror that's going on in America. We don't just stand by and watch stuff like this. Sometimes we can't do anything about it. I said the other night, like the Uyghurs in China, what can we possibly do? But here we certainly can do something about it. And those of you who want to turn your head, you don't feel upset about it, you're not bothered by it, certainly not enough to think that we should do something, that's on your conscience, not mine. You know, I did a show Saturday, and I've done it here behind this mic on Fox, about the French. But for the French and to some extent the Spanish, there would be no America. There'd be no United States for sure. Be no Constitution. There'd be nothing, none of this. But for the French Navy, and 6,000 to 7,000 of their soldiers. They didn't have to do any of that. Revolutions require outsiders. They just do. Mao had help. Lenin had help. Castro had help. The New York Times, among others. We had help. People with their bare hands can't fight tanks, AK-47s, and so forth and so on. And these are young people. The Iranian people are not only Western, the population is younger. And they didn't do anything wrong. I can't talk people into feeling their souls and their spirits and their hearts feeling like something needs to be done if people don't have that feeling. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other people. We're not even talking about sending in 400,000 or 500,000 troops. We're not even talking about sending in one soldier. And apparently that's too much for some people. But we shouldn't be promoting terrorists and former terrorists and pretending there's something that they're not when they are what they are. You know, if you dress up a terrorist and they get a haircut, maybe shower every 3 or 4 months and put a suit on them and a tie and a white shirt and they're meeting with high officials, all that is a terrorist who got a haircut and is wearing a suit. It's still a terrorist. And the guy's a terrorist. And he's been working with Erdogan, a terrorist. And Erdogan, he has alliance with Khomeini now. There's a guy, he's in NATO, for God's sakes. He's got our equipment. They're standing and watching and keeping a very close eye on what happens to their brother, Khomeini, and his people, the regime. Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince of Iran, on Fox today. Cut 2, go.
The decisive factor would be the instrument of repression that has been unleashed against our people is what is the ultimate obstacle to overcome. What changes the odds in favor of the people that can finally take over the system and push to a complete collapse depends on calculated strategic strikes against these institutions.
And those would be American strikes?
It would be, well, it could be an American strike, it could be Israeli strike, it could be whatever. The Iranian people now are looking as the cavalry coming, because we can only hold the fort up to a point.
Yep.
The cavalry can help us overcome the odds. Look, this is a regime so desperate that it has to import elements from Lebanon, from Afghanistan, from Iraq as instrument of repression, because they are running out of elements of their own doing the dirty job against them. This is what's at stake. So the regime right now is on its last leg. It's on the verge of collapse. It's going to attempt every other means to yet again survive. That's why a definitive strike is going to completely reverse the odds in favor of the nation and defenseless people. That's what we need in terms of actual support.
I don't think it's that simple. I think it's going to require more than some strategic strikes, but I think it needs to be done. And I do think one of those strikes has to be to take out Khomeini. He's got to go. He's got to be eliminated. And his threats on our president, enough is enough. His threats on our country, enough is enough. His threats for more nuclear weapons. You know, he says, you destroyed our weapons, but you haven't destroyed our knowledge about the technology, have you? Meaning he's going to keep at it. So you got to lance this cancerous tumor. It's time. It's been half a century. He's killed, directly and indirectly through surrogates, 1,000 of our people. They've tried to assassinate our president. I mean, since when do we put up with such stuff? And he's on his back. The economy's dead. The people are rising up. And these poor people are getting gunned down. They're getting machine gunned. They have mass graves now. It's just so horrendous what's happening over there. And now the Kurds. It's all part of the same element. And a lot of these people are now in our country. They're in our country. The Democrats want to talk about affordability. I want to talk about survivability. The Democrats have brought these people into our country. They have. And they don't want them to leave. They've aligned with them. They consider them part of their constituent group, just another group, just another ethnic group. They've done this to us. They've done this to our country. The Kurds are now being wiped out, slaughtered. Their women are being taken, raped, murdered, like the Yazidis. I mean, this is what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, right now. And the Iranian people, what's happening to them is stomach turning. I watch these mothers crying over the body bags of their sons and daughters. It is heart-wrenching. There's even some film, you look at it once, you wish you didn't. Like 3 or 4 of these thugs on one 20-year-old girl, throwing her on the ground and executing her. I mean, what if that were your daughter? Can you think about it? It's just unbelievable. And yes, there is something we can do about it. And yes, it is our business as fellow human beings. And another great show, Sunday, with Peter Schweitzer, will be on here tomorrow night in his new book. And we were both talking about it. How do you separate domestic policy from foreign policy when you have foreign countries that are injecting this into the bloodstream of the American system? They're sending these people into our country. The communist Chinese are doing it. He said there's about 100,000 children born into our country that from people sent to the United States from communist China, and they're automatic citizens and their birthright citizenship. And I sure as hell hope the Supreme Court has the guts to actually follow the Constitution. This isn't in the Constitution. And a whole industry. And his book explains all this stuff. Same with these radical Islamists sending people over here. They have children, 10, 11, 12 children. They're all going to be voters. They're all going to change the demographics of the country. They'll tell you that's what they're doing. Listen to the imams. That's why they're here. That's why they say they're here. In fact, one said, why the hell would we be in the United States other than to conquer it? And you hear this stuff repeatedly from different voices, different imams, from the Florida Care Director and other members of CARE, which is a Hamas front group. They're right here now. I hear people say, well, how is it that they move from one riot or protest to another? First it's the Palestinians, and then it is immigration, and then it's because they're funded, they're organized, and they have the same purpose, as I've told you many times and in my book on power, the overthrow of the United States of America. They have fused together in their revolution, an internal revolution against our country. They'll sort everything out after when they figure when they've conquered us and all the rest. But in the meantime, they have the same objective, the destruction of the United States, the Judeo-Christian system, our Republican small r system. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
ICE, the heroes of ICE, the heroes of law enforcement. What you're seeing in these cities, Minneapolis and so forth, are not normal Americans with a beef. You're seeing Marxists, Islamists, illegal aliens. You're seeing billionaires in the shadows who are organizing this and paying for it. You're seeing foreign countries like Qatar, like Iran, like Communist China, funding it. Also, getting involved in our social media with bots, with propagandists, pushing it. The enemy is here, the enemy within. And it should be plural, the enemy is within. That's what you're watching. And if they win the battle of immigration, it's over. Birthright citizenship, people pouring over the border by the millions, because when the Democrats come back, and one day they will, they're going to do it again. The Democrat Party hates you, Mr. and Mrs. America. They hate you. They can talk about affordability all they want, but they're the least knowledgeable about affordability. They screw up everything. Food prices, gasoline prices, home prices. That's what they do. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Today we celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. Martin Luther King today, what he was preaching would be denounced. He'd be called an Oreo cookie. He promoted a colorblind society. He was a registered Republican. And so forth and so on. Have you ever wondered what Martin Luther King thought about Israel and the Jews? Ever wonder about that? Hat Tip Unplugged on X. Jeremy Unplugged. There's just a little piece. Take a listen. Cut 21, go.
The whole world must see that Israel must exist and has the right to exist and is one of the great outposts of democracy in the world.
My Jewish brothers and sisters said to me amid anti-Semitism anywhere, we don't need your support. We have enough Jewish power to deal with this problem ourselves. I would still take a stand against anti-Semitism because it's wrong, it's unjust, and it's evil. If my Catholic brothers and sisters said to me, amid bigotry toward Catholics, we don't need your support in this because we have enough Catholic power to deal with it, I would still take a stand against bigotry toward Catholics because it is wrong, it is evil, and it is unjust.
My God, how charismatic was this man? Unbelievable. But listen to what he said. Listen to what he said. I feel like I stand with the Iranian people for the same reason. I stand with the Kurds for the same reason. I've never been to Iran. I've never been to the areas where the Kurds live. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These are good people. In fact, they share our belief systems, whether they're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. These are good people. And I stand with them, period. I don't even have to think about it. Look how he's talking about the Jewish people. He understood Judeo-Christian belief systems. And some of the earliest people who he befriended and befriended him were young Jewish college students and other Jews, some of whom were murdered by the Klan. By the Klan. And we have a modern-day Klan today. Now, they don't wear white hoods and white sheets, no. Some wear bow ties. Some wear sports jackets. Some wear hunting gear. Nice coiffed hair and haircuts and well-shaven. Some of them are very wealthy. Some of them you know. It's a different look, you know. It's a different look. There's a video going around on the internet. It's actually very good. And it has a segment out of a movie where Adolf Hitler learns that basically the powers aligned against him are winning the war. And he screams at his generals, and he has some of them leave, and then his top generals, he brutalizes. But then they dubbed in his speech, he said, "We're the Aryan people. We're the Aryan people." And then they showed pictures, movie pictures, of these 5 pieces of crap who are well-known Jew haters, and worse than that, they really believe in the extermination of the Jews and so forth. And so Fuentes, one of the Tate brothers, maybe both of them, some guy named, Scooby-Doo or something, whatever their names are. And on a private jet because, they're one of the people. And just saying the most horrendous things about Jews and singing a Hitler song. And they go to a club in Miami, and they have the club plays the Hitler song. It turns out the club, his main investor is Muslim. Another man who owns a number of clubs said they are not permitted in his clubs. Man has some basic standards. And they pointed out, well, let's see, Fuentes, part Mexican, might be gay. Then you have a guy from Sudan, obviously black. And they were going through who these guys are. Another guy who's mixed race, not exactly Aryan. And what would Hitler do to these Hitler Youth types? He'd kill them. He'd kill them. Low IQ, he'd kill them. These are the new Nazis. Oh, there's others too. There's others too. But on this celebration of Martin Luther King's birthday, I wanted you to hear what he had to say. Because nobody hears what he says anymore. They just pour their own and project their own vile beliefs onto him. He was not a Marxist. He's not an Islamist. He certainly wasn't a neo-fascist. He believed in a colorblind society. That phrase, people of color, would never come out of his mouth. And we celebrate his birthday for that reason. For that reason. We don't celebrate Malcolm X's birthday, do we? We don't celebrate George Wallace's birthday, do we? And this is what we're dealing with today. The George Wallace New Reich and Malcolm X. It's not even Malcolm X. Who would it be? Farrakhan. And the Farrakhan left. The Farrakhan left and their Islamist Marxist belief systems. That's what we're dealing with. Much of it funded by foreign governments. So when you see ICE out there, and you listen to these Democrats, and I got a whole list of clips that I can't even get to, just trashing these men and women, trashing them. Half of whom are minorities. And the biggest minority are Hispanics. Just calling them stuff and accusing them of stuff and on and on and on. And these are not public people. These are hardworking people. Making a middle-class income, not even upper middle-class income. Going to work every day knowing they're going to be spat upon. They might have bricks thrown at them. They have cars driven against them. Then they have to listen to them, to the governor of California, to the governor of Illinois. They have to listen to Schumer and Bernie Sanders and Jim Clyburn and Pramila Jayapal, if that is her name. Don Lemon. What a piece of crap that guy is. Absolute piece of crap. That's right, you jerk. That's right. Goes to a church. They force their way in. They interrupt a church service. You understand that's a federal crime, you little creep. Like freedom of speech. That's not freedom of speech. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. It's not an act of journalism either, you schmo. You got a big mouth for a little man. Big mouth. With stupid things that come out of your mouth. You guys force your way into a church where parishioners are there because you think the pastor might be part of ICE? Oh, God forbid. How come you don't force your way into any mosques where there's imams talking about decapitating people? Or there's imams talking about conquering the United States, you little schmuck. How come you don't go into those? Because you're a coward. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
If your credit card balance is freaking you out after all the holiday spending, I have something that can save you money right now. Cut your cell phone bill in half by switching to Pure Talk Saver Plan. Just $20 a month for unlimited talk, text, and 3 gigs of high-speed data on Pure Talk's super-fast nationwide 5G network. As a veteran-led company that cares about giving back to those who serve, if you're active or former military or a first responder, you'll save an additional 20% every single month. The easiest way to free up cash flow is to reduce your monthly recurring bills. Start with cutting overpriced wireless and switching to my wireless company. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and make the switch today in as little as 10 minutes. Again, talk, text, and data just $20 a month. That's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk is America's wireless company. Great guest. We had him on Saturday's Life, Liberty, and Levin as well. Richard Goldberg, Senior Advisor, Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. He also worked in the Trump administration on national security matters. Richard, thank you for coming. Now, Iran, nothing's changed much in Iran. They're still slaughtering people, aren't they?
They are. We're getting reports that even though you're not seeing the millions of people that we saw out in the streets the first few nights, there are still protests popping up every night around the country. They're clashing with them, which really means they're killing the people from the regime side. They're mass arresting still. And very tragically, even though they've told the president that they're not going to have these mass executions, we're starting to learn trickle-down information that they are executing many of the people they've detained in private. And we expect some of these mass executions will continue to roll out, even if it's behind closed doors, and you'll learn about it weeks later when families are finally notified. Right now, you just have tens of thousands of families who just are wondering, where is my son? Where are my children? Where are my family members? They're in some secret prison being tortured. Some of them are going on television with forced confessions under torture. Some of them are being killed in the middle of the night. That's the reality of what's happening in Iran right now, but the embers of that uprising are still alive.
Are you convinced the president's going to act?
I am, because the president, as I...
By the way, I agree with you, but I want your opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't imagine otherwise, because he knows that he set a red line, and it's important to enforce that. That's one thing. But that's not the main reason why. I think that this president, maybe the first president we've had since 1979 in the Islamic Revolution, after almost 47 years of this regime waging war against America, we are the great Satan, according to them. They say death to America first in all of their chants. And they have killed countless Americans, from Beirut to Khobar Towers to Iraq to Gaza on October 7th, to many other terrorist attacks, assassination plots against Donald Trump himself and many people who work for Donald Trump. All of this to try to destroy America, working with Russia and China, building missiles, trying to build nuclear weapons to destroy America and our way of life. All of these things, despite all of those threats, this is the first president, certainly in my lifetime, who gets it and who isn't trying to mitigate a problem, who isn't just trying to get along and say, okay, well, we're going to kick the can down the road. How can we minimize the Iranian threat to the United States for the next 4 years, and somebody else will have to deal with it? No, this is the man who took out the world's mastermind of terrorism, Qasem Soleimani, This is the man who said, I'm not going to allow this regime to have nuclear weapons to continue to extort the United States and the rest of the world, and sent B-2 bombers to destroy those nuclear sites. And this is a man who sees this regime teetering on the brink of collapse and knows it's his moment in history to seize, and he can do it, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm. They're moving a hell of a lot of assets into the region, aren't they?
Well, we have a carrier strike group on the way. We have reports of a whole bunch of different fighter squadrons running around and moving towards the region. Obviously, if you had B-2 stealth capabilities, they would launch from the United States, and you'd find out about it after they've dropped their massive bombs, as we recall, from Operation Midnight Hammer. But he's definitely expanding his option set here. It's not just cyber operations, and maybe he can launch a few Tomahawks from some destroyers in the Arabian Gulf or the Red Sea. He's going to have a lot more firepower here as President of the United States to deter the Iranians, but more importantly, enough with deterrence. Actually degrade, destroy, uproot their capabilities that threaten us most, that extort us, their missile program, their Navy that threatens to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. All of those things, and then be able to really think about what is command and control inside Tehran. How do you degrade that? How do you give the protesters, the millions of people who are right now in their homes waiting for the President of the United States to do something, ready to come back out and seize institutions the way that he called on them to do? If he can put together a plan with General Kane as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and other senior advisors, the way that we've seen them put together spectacular creative things already. Look at what they did to Maduro in Venezuela. Did anybody predict that operation? No. Yeah, people could have thought there was going to be this strike or that strike. There's nobody who could have written that book of what they did in Venezuela. There's nobody who could have written the book of what they did during a 12-day war coordinating with Israel, topping it off with B-2 bombers. And I don't think there's anybody who really knows the script of what's coming here, except Donald Trump, General Kane, and a few very close advisors in the National Security Council.
Although he did say it's time for leadership change, and that's what I hope. I hope they, I hope they kill him. Khomeini. He's got to be blown away, because as long as he's around, it's going to be a problem, one way or another, and he deserves it.
And you mean the supreme leader, the quote-unquote supreme leader, the supreme leader of death, really,
the supreme killer.
Ali Khamenei. The supreme killer, absolutely. If Donald Trump knows where he's hiding, remember, he put a Truth Social post up during that 12-day war, and he said, I know where you are. I can find you. I'm letting you live for now. I'll always remember that post. That was a very important post. If he still does know where Ali Khamenei is hiding, some bunker, and he has the right munitions and he has the right plan to potentially decapitate the head of that regime and give the people in that moment of disorientation time to come out and seize their opportunity. You know, the Israelis, I remember, this is a year and a half ago, remember the spectacular strike on the bunker in Beirut against the head of Hezbollah, and Nasrallah being taken out. The whole organization was neutralized. I mean, they were frozen for days. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't launch missiles from the field even, and they had them. And the Israeli Air Force just ripped it all to shreds while they were totally disoriented. I think the president could conceive of something like that. There's no boots on the ground. There's no Americans in harm's way. You take actions to mitigate and prevent any Iranian retaliation, and you formulate a plan like that, he can do a lot of damage there. And is there a guarantee of what's going to happen next? I don't think you can give the president a guarantee. You can absolutely say we're going to minimize the downsides for the United States here. We're going to minimize any retaliatory capability of the Iranians, and the regime will be as weak as it's ever been in history, and 1 million or more people will be able to come out into the streets, and we'll see what happens next. As President of the United States, that will be more than any president in history has ever done, and I think it could be the tipping point where he goes down in history right alongside Ronald Reagan for so many of these achievements. And here's one more. Ronald Reagan brought down the Soviet Union. This president can bring down the Islamic Republic of Iran.
We're going to have to take a little break. And so my question when we come back is this. Is there any doubt that we're working very closely with the Israelis, who probably have a very good, or at least the best handle on what's taking place inside that country? I want to pursue that with you. Talking to Richard Goldberg, Senior Advisor, Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a fantastic organization. We'll be right back. If your credit card balance is freaking you out after all the holiday spending, I have something that can save you money right now. Cut your cell phone bill in half by switching to Pure Talk Saver Plan. Just $20 a month for unlimited talk, text, and 3 gigs of high-speed data on Pure Talk's super-fast nationwide 5G network. As a veteran-led company that cares about giving back to those who serve, if you're active or former military or a first responder, you'll save an additional 20% every single month. The easiest way to free up cash flow is to reduce your monthly recurring bills. Start with cutting overpriced wireless and switching to my wireless company. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and make the switch today in as little as 10 minutes. Again, talk, text, and data just $20 a month. That's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk is America's wireless company.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with Rich Goldberg, Senior Advisor, Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He worked in the National Security Council under President Trump. Rich, before we get to my question about Israel's intel, anything you can tell us, I'm reading now that under the regime's penal code, that they're going to torture these people before they murder them. And in the case of virgin girls, they're going to rape them before they murder them so they can't go to heaven. So this is really horrendous stuff that's going on here.
It's beyond horrific. I mean, the torture of political prisoners goes back decades. We have so many testimonials from people who were taken in the middle of the night from their homes because they had different beliefs. They had been a part of a student protest. Maybe they're a different religion. Maybe they're Christian. Maybe they're Baha'i, the largest religious minority in Iran. Maybe they're an ethnic minority. They get picked up by the Iranian version of the Gestapo, the Basij forces. They get brought to a place called Evin Prison, the political prison in Tehran, and there they're tortured every night. And sometimes during that torture, when the person just wants it to end, they bring in a film crew, and they say, tell us all of your crimes. Tell us who you worked with. Tell us you were an American agent. Tell us you're an Israeli agent. And they take that, because the person thinks it's going to be better afterwards, like a hostage video, and they put it on state television. They're doing it right now, Mark, to the people who were taken off the streets during the protests in the last couple of weeks. And then they kill them. In some cases, they go back to torturing them. But very few see the light of day. And if they do, it's many years later.
I figure the Israelis probably have the best handle on what's going on in there, where Khomeini may be, or some of these commanders and so forth. And so, number one, do you think that's right? And number two, wouldn't they be sharing that information and working with us on that?
I think if we go from what is public and precedent that we can learn from, it is without a doubt that President Trump is consulting very closely on an almost hourly basis with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Our intelligence services are talking, our top security officials are talking, our military planners are talking to fully understand the picture. The Mossad, the Israeli version of the CIA, has the best intelligence inside of Iran of any country in the world. They have operatives that we've seen. They've been able to conduct assassinations, sabotage, drone attacks launched from inside Iran. During the 12-day war, when it started, there were hit squads from Mossad, most likely, running around hitting the top nuclear scientists of Iran at the same time, and other leading commanders of the Revolutionary Guard Corps, just as the missiles were starting to come in from the Israeli aircraft as well. So as far as what is going on the ground, where are senior personnel, what are things that can happen from a cyber perspective, sabotage, human beings that can do things timed just right for when aircraft or missiles will be coming through. The Israelis will be a key node in that pipeline. And by the way, they, of course, have their own Air Force. We know that Prime Minister Netanyahu was just at Mar-a-Lago over the New Year talking to President Trump. President Trump came out to the public, spoke about the threat of Iran's missile program that's still there even after the 12-day war, their attempts to reconstitute their ballistic and cruise missile program with the help of the Chinese, and the fact that at some point he would endorse an Israeli strike to take out what's left of that missile program. So it's always quite possible that you could flip the script. President Trump could open something and the Israelis could close it. Last time the Israelis opened something and President Trump closed it.
Mm-hmm. Do you get the sense that the Iranian regime thinks something's going to happen? Sometimes they act like they're above it all.
From everything that we see, they are taking a dual-track approach, which is not atypical. On the one hand, their propaganda is all about puffing themselves up. From the supreme leader, the supreme killer, the president, so-called president, the leader of the parliament, senior advisors, they're all giving interviews, they're all giving speeches, trying to provoke Donald Trump, trying to threaten him, threaten the United States. We're not going to be bullied. We've already squashed all the protests. All the protesters are off the street. They were terrorists from America and Israel, and we're going to get Donald Trump. He shouldn't even think about attacking us. They said a lot of these things leading up to the 12-day war, and we saw what their true capabilities were. They were nothing. They were like Maduro's capabilities in the middle of the night, and that did a lot for him. But at the same time, we are getting reports that they're on high alert. They're on highest alert. When they thought there were B-2 bombers in the air last week, I think we saw a lot of different things happening inside of Iran. The Israelis probably saw a lot of different things happening inside of Iran, and we may now know exactly where they go, what their protocols are, where their hideouts are. They probably expose a lot of themselves to the United States and Israel. That'll be to Donald Trump's advantage as he moves forward. But, that also means that the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy may have dispersed already into the Strait, into the Gulf. They might carry mines. They might try to blow up ships or do that in retaliation. And so bringing an aircraft carrier and bringing fighter jets in also means you have increased dynamic targeting capability, so that if you see a fast boat, if you see somebody from the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy trying to lay mines near the Strait of Hormuz, you go in and take them out very quickly. If you see somebody trying to move missiles in the desert, you see something launched, you go and take out the launchers and everybody from the command and control of that launcher very quickly. So that's going to be one of the additional options on the menu for President Trump as he's moving all these forces into the region.
Mm-hmm. And how much longer? Look, we don't know exactly, but how much longer do you think it might take? Excuse me.
Well, we have a few
more than a week.
Left. It could be a week. It could be less than a week. I would imagine that what he is waiting for is whatever General Kane has told him needs to be in place for the option set that he likes the best. If this is actually going to be something that he executes on, he's going to want the carrier strike group within distance to be able to have fighters going off the boat, to be able to have whatever other weapon systems, missiles that the carrier strike group is bringing along with the destroyers that are already there. He's going to be waiting for other squadrons to have arrived at whatever bases they're going to be arriving at. And at that point, he has a green light available to him. And as far as the carrier strike group that people are tracking coming from the Indo-Pacific, that only has a few days left on its transit. So that's probably by the weekend he has enough assets in place to start making moves.
Mm-hmm. And what's your sense within the administration? I think at this point everybody's united at this. Isn't that your sense now?
Listen, I think that President Trump is somebody who at the beginning of a process asks for a lot of input, likes differing opinions. He's put together a cabinet. He has a vice president, people who have strong views, have different backgrounds, bring different experiences, and bring different thoughts to the table. He has a gut feeling. He already knows pretty much where he wants to go, but he pressure tests, he pushes, he wants to understand what comes back from different arguments, and then he goes in a direction that makes the most sense for our national security. That's how he's always governed so far. And so once he's made that decision and the time for debate is over, the people inside the room salute, and they play their parts. And sometimes those parts are part of actually a disinformation campaign like we saw leading up to the 12-day war last summer. But rest assured, that is an inner tight group that doesn't leak, is loyal to the president, and is going to carry out his wishes.
Well, somebody's leaking. The Axios. I don't know who it is, though. Let me ask you this real fast. Now, the Kurds. Kurds are a close ally. They've done fighting with us and for us against ISIS and so forth and so on. Erdogan has wanted to wipe them out from day one. He's trying to do that now. The head of Syria, turns out he's not the greatest reformer on the face of the earth. Most of us knew that. And what's happening right now is horrendous to the Kurds in Syria. What is going on there?
Well, we saw a preview of this in what Jelani was allowing to have happen in southern Syria along the Israeli border with the Druze. Right, Jelani, the head of Syria now, put there with the backing of Turkey and Qatar, the former Al-Qaeda in Syria chief, now with a suit on, being the quote-unquote reformer leader there. But what we have seen so far is a tolerance for a lot of butchery, a lot of mass murder, especially of minorities, as he tries to assert his control in the state. We saw it with the Druze. We're now seeing it potentially with the Kurds. Kurds have fought with the United States for many years. They helped us defeat ISIS. And obviously, if you weaken the Kurds, if you attack the Kurds, if the Kurds abandon certain detention facilities that are holding the worst of the worst ISIS terrorists, then you start seeing increase in sectarian violence. You start seeing terrorism spiking back. And now we're back involved in trying to take out ISIS leaders again in Syria. So the president has been pretty clear for a while. He did not want to see Turkey or al-Shara come after the Kurds. He wants to see a situation where the Kurds are able to keep their status quo, keep their security, that everybody respects each other, and he's able to pull the rest of the U.S. forces out of Syria over the long term. That's really what he wants to do, as far as I can tell. But if Erdogan and Turkey and al-Shara in Damascus are going to be threatening the Kurds, threatening the Druze, threatening Israel at some point, that's not a good situation. And we're caught in the middle, but at the same time, al-Shara, Erdogan, they want a lot of things from this president. And the president has a lot of leverage here. He knows how to use leverage. And this is going to be a time for him to use it.
All right, my friend. We've run out of time. I appreciate it. You're doing a great job over there. Tell everybody we wish them the best at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. And I would just point out that Tucker Carlson's father was once chairman of the board over there, wasn't he?
Strong ally, strong friend of the organization, strong friend of democracy and of Israel, fighting for freedom for many years, beloved by many in Washington.
Yeah, he sure was. Part of the Reagan administration. All right, you take care of yourself. Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, it's a good man. Rich Goldberg, Senior Advisor, Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
If your credit card balance is freaking you out after all the holiday spending, I have something that can save you money right now. Cut your cell phone bill in half by switching to Pure Talk Saver Plan. Just $20 a month for unlimited talk, text, and 3 gigs of high-speed data on Pure Talk's super-fast nationwide 5G network. As a veteran-led company that cares about giving back to those who serve, if you're active or former military or a first responder, you'll save an additional 20% every single month. The easiest way to free up cash flow is to reduce your monthly recurring bills. Start with cutting overpriced wireless and switching to my wireless company. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and make the switch today in as little as 10 minutes. Again, talk, text, and data just $20 a month. That's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk is America's wireless company. So there's a lot going on right now. You can see that the Islamists, basically, it's a death cult. And it's not just about killing. It's about doing such inhumane things to other human beings. You've got to ask yourself, what kind of a brain does that? What kind of a mind? And then this is considered religion. Fundamentalist nonetheless, but religion. It's done in the name of God. It's done in the name of faith. Now I want you to think about that. Torturing people, raping people, executing them on the spot. Young teenagers, even babies, pregnant women. If they were caught even walking silently among the protesters, killed. I want you to think about this. We talk about the price of a loaf of bread or a gallon of gasoline. These people in Iran, they wish that's all they could talk about. And the Kurds are being crushed as I speak by a false reformer, Al-Qaeda in Syria leader working with Erdogan, who is a nationalist, socialist Islamist. He's in NATO, just slaughtering these people. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Be me. Our number 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. You know what tonight is, Mr. Producer, don't you? ION, I-O-N, that channel. Chicago PD. That show has become my favorite show, and the FBI show that's on the same channel on Thursday nights at 9. My wife and I are hooked on these shows. But they got rid of the Tom Selleck show, which infuriates me. Not ION, they run the reruns. But I guess, I don't know, was it NBC or CBS, whatever. But that it really does infuriate me. By the way, Swalwell may have a problem on his hands, unless this matter gets before a state judge in California, and they'll grease the skids for him. There's some kind of a film director or producer who brought a lawsuit that he doesn't qualify to run for governor because he's a resident of Washington, D.C., where he spends most of his time, and another one with the mortgages, that was his primary residence. Now, somebody please tell me how Latukas James got away with that one. You and I would never get away with that. Not that we would even try, but we wouldn't get away with that. But Latukas, she gets away with it. Why? Because there was a hack judge. That's why. It's that simple. It was a hack judge. And that's what hack judges do. Stuff like that. And that's what happened. Stuff like that. They have their judges. Their judges are ideologically driven, no matter what. It's the nature of the beast, if you will. Let's see here. Ready for this one, New York Post? They told you what's going on in Iran is a Holocaust. And our friends at the New York Post, haunting image shows pile of abandoned shoes after Iran's bloodthirsty regime burned protesters to death. I don't think the full sense of what's going on over there is being properly exposed in our country. A haunting image shows a pile of abandoned shoes after Iran's bloodthirsty regime trapped surrendering protesters in a historic bazaar and burned them alive in what is being likened to Iran's Holocaust. The picture taken in the city of Rasht, northwest Iran, shows the aftermath of the massacre on January 8, which regime henchmen set fire to the popular marketplace, trapping demonstrators inside and shooting those who tried to escape. ladies and gentlemen. According to eyewitness accounts and human rights organizations, most of it's sneakers, kids. If this is not a crime against humanity, what is? Said Ashra Sigarshi, an award-winning journalist, former Iranian political prisoner, managing editor of Voice of America's Persian division, sharing the image on X. He compared the picture to the display of victim shoes at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and branded the Iranian theocracy Nazi-like. Join the club, because that's exactly what it is. They belong to people trapped after regime forces set the historic bazaar on fire and shot those trying to escape. The imagery is unmistakable. The victims of the massacre had reportedly surrendered to security forces before being slaughtered. According to Iran Human Rights, a Norway-based NGO, footage of the aftermath shared by the rights organization also shows the burned-out, smoldering remains of the bazaar. These people need to be killed. I'm sorry. There's even more. Iranian protesters, including teen, sexually assaulted by security forces, human rights group says. These are demonic people. These are evil, evil regime people. They just need to be sent on to the ether. Iran security forces are accused of sexually assaulting protesters in custody, including a 16-year-old, during the violent crackdown on anti-government demonstrators that has left thousands dead. At least 2 protesters, including a minor, have detailed the sexual abuse they suffered to the Kurdistan Human Rights Network during their arrest at a rally against the regime, The Guardian reported. During the transfer, security forces touched their bodies with batons. They beat and applied pressure to anal area with a baton through the clothing, and it goes on. The allegations match the descriptions from other human rights groups of the extreme violence carried out specifically against the Kurdish minority in Iran during the protest crackdown. So the Kurdish minority in Iran, the Kurdish minority in Syria, the Kurdish minority in Turkey. The groups have also warned that many more protesters are likely to come forward with similar stories given the horrors demonstrators have faced in 2022 anti-government rallies, when reports emerged of regular rapes, beatings, and torture by state police. The scale could be much larger this time, as an estimated 20,000 people are detained, more like 30,000 now, since the demonstration began. As of Monday, at least one protester has been confirmed to have been killed as a result of torture by Iran security. One. It's got to be 1,001. Let's see. Hey, these body bags. KHRN warned that at least 20 children and teens remain in custody in one town in Kurdistan provinces in Iran, with the protesters allegedly deprived of legal support. Well, of course, it's one bullet per head. That's it. Brutal hospital raids, where Iran security forces use bullets and tear gas on patients and medical staff. Mass arrests. I mean, it goes on and on and on. This is just hell on earth. Hell on earth. I feel so bad for these people. And I got to believe we're going to do something about this. And then Khomeini himself, Jerusalem Post, Khomeini, Iran admits to the slaughter and counts on the world to look away. Writes the Jerusalem Post, the so-called supreme leader, as you heard me, I call him the supreme killer, is now openly acknowledged what the Islamic Republic has spent weeks trying to obscure. In remarks carried by Iranian state media, Khomeini admitted that several thousand deaths had occurred during Iran's latest wave of national protests while blaming the United States and Israel. Yeah, that's right. Protesters, he declared, were criminals, mercenaries, maharab, enemies of God, a charge that carries the death penalty under Iranian law. I'm telling you, this guy needs to be eliminated, obliterated. The more painful, the better. For our 4 decades, the Islamic Republic has relied on familiar formula for survival, begins with the repression at home, then blames foreign intervention, and waits for the world to hesitate. When Iranians protest corruption or inflation, the regime's response is lethal force. And when the death toll mounts, Tehran redirects responsibility outward, confident that international outrage will stop short of any consequential acts. This is one way the regime has furtively held on to power. The current unrest represents the most serious challenge to the regime since the 2022 Masa Amini protests, arguably since the republic's inception in 1979. Human rights groups estimate that more than 16,000 people have been murdered, tens of thousands arrested. I saw one figure, 330,000. That's the size of Baltimore, just so you know. Iranian officials have publicly warned that detainees will face severe punishment. What the head prosecutor said is they're going to be killed, and soon, and in mass executions. He said it. No Iranian embassies have been closed, nor have any ambassadors been recalled. Diplomatic relations continue largely uninterrupted. That's too bad. It's just too much, really. It's ridiculous. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. We're here with really a top lawyer, Mark Goldfeder, CEO of the National Jewish Advocacy Center. Mark Goldfeder, here's the thing. Mandami's first step in office is to reverse I guess, an executive order of the prior mayor, which basically undermined the definition of anti-Semitism. Can you explain that, number one, and why would he do that?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. Why would he do that? Well, again, it's difficult to overstate just how disturbing it is that one of the very first acts as mayor of New York, he decides to set the tone for his administration by rolling back protections for Jewish people. Unbelievable that he did that. You know, the mayor can't decide what is and is not a hate crime, but what he can do is put a finger on the scale and try to decide what is and is not going to be prioritized. The reason he rolled back that particular definition of anti-Semitism is because that definition, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IRA definition, makes it clear that sometimes anti-Zionism can cross the line into anti-Semitism. And in Mamdani's worldview, that's not true.
In Mamdani's worldview, it is hardcore Islamist, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, unabashedly.
And he gets elected anyway, but not by a lot. And he says things and he does things even now. The country saw what happened to that, I guess it was a Jewish synagogue, and the Hamas supporters were there shouting down parishioners and so forth and so on. Did they get permission to protest there right in front of the synagogue?
Incredibly enough, they got a permit. And again, just to be clear, the city has clear authority and responsibility to be imposing and enforcing content-neutral time, place, and manner restrictions to protect public safety and to prevent what this was. This wasn't just a protest. This was targeted intimidation, right? Particularly where there are prior demonstrations that have included these same masked participants that are chanting things for glorifying violence, right? This is conduct that is reasonably perceived as threatening members of a particular community. There is nothing in the First Amendment that requires the city to tolerate this and to give that kind of a permit.
Are there not federal laws or a federal law that violates too?
Sure. The FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. It's an abortion clinic act, but there's a paragraph 2 which says, or houses of religious worship. You know, a couple of years ago when there was this pogrom outside of Adas Torah Synagogue in Los Angeles, people were being beaten in the streets outside of this shul. And everybody from the mayor of Los Angeles to then President Biden said the right things. It's a horrible act of anti-Semitism, but no one did anything. Not a single person was indicted. So we brought a FACE Act violation because, again, the nice thing about these useful idiots that do these protests is that they're still idiots at the end of the day. So they bragged about how they were going to block a synagogue. They filmed themselves blocking a synagogue, and then they bragged about how they blocked the synagogue. We said, great. You said, how many people there? $5,000 per violation? Wonderful. Now there's $2 million of deterrence, and you won't do it again. And they've never coming back to that synagogue. So what we have started doing is bringing those FACE Act cases around the country. And we're pushing the city to enact its own version of the FACE Act, a state or a citywide version that would give a private right of action as well. There is a criminal right of action for blocking synagogues.
Now, you litigate a lot. Do you find this group CARE has its hand invisible and sometimes very obvious in a lot of this?
I mean, CARE is the unindicted co-conspirator of the largest terror financing case in history. We have documents going back 30 years showing that they are literally openly supporting Hamas. It's beyond the pale, I believe, that they're still allowed to do the kind of things that they do right out there in the open. And I'm never surprised when I see the kinds of heinous statements that they make. You know, again, the White House stopped working with them, I believe, when they said that they were happy about October 7th, something along those lines, but they have said horrible things. Anytime you find a tragedy, you'll find CARE there trying to spin it. You know, during this whole Somali fraud thing, CARE came out and said that this was really an Israeli plot. Okay, I mean, look, I don't think people can take them seriously at that point, but the fact that they're out there trying to spin it is worrisome in and of itself.
I just wonder about the tax codes, whatever their status is, 501c3 or 4 or whatever it is. I mean, isn't that problematic?
Yeah, there are definitely those. Sure, definitely those who are already pushing for investigation into that. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of these laws are murky and they allow for a lot of dark money to be flowing in, but hopefully there'll be some reform in that area as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I notice this is an organization that when you really challenge it, it backs off, because I've been on the air a long time, and when I first came on, they were kind of nascent group, getting stronger and stronger, and they were intimidating local hosts who would dare to talk about Islamism and them, and I came on and said, well, go ahead and sue me, because I'm going to counterclaim you, and I'm going to have all kinds of discovery, and I'm not going to surrender. I'm not going to agree to anything. And they never did. So in the end, they really want to protect their books, don't they?
Very much so. Again, I think that a lot of what you see with these groups is, if you would go one level under, there's this unbelievably incestuous network of bad actors that are all deeply connected. And one thing that they don't want you to see is how exactly they are connected. You know, we're in a lawsuit against CARE, but they're also, SJP is involved. And so are a number of other groups that are operating
Students
around
for
the country
Justice
in this sort
in
of
Palestine.
unified faction.
Yeah.
Right. And again, their parent organization, American Muslims for Palestine. You know, we have a lawsuit against Palestine Chronicle, which is a 501c3, an American quote-unquote media outlet that was actually paying a journalist in Gaza who was holding hostages in his home. And when he did a little bit of pressing, it turns out that the editor-in-chief of this magazine, his daughter is the head of social media for American Muslims for Palestine and for Students for Justice in Palestine. And, you know, they're having dinner with this one from CARE. It's all one big, unfortunate mob situation. And it's very, very scary. And one of the things they don't want you to do, again, is to pierce that veil and get under the hood and see how they're all connected.
And it is scary, because these aren't people who want to live and let live. They don't want to assimilate. They want to conquer. They want to threaten and intimidate. And there's got to be a way at some point for us to figure out how to be able to control this situation. I think you can talk about free speech and freedom of association all they want, but at least in cases where people are not here as actual citizens and so forth, can't they be removed?
They absolutely can be, and they should be. You know, Mahmoud Khalil is an excellent example of that. Mahmoud Khalil is the former leader of CUAD, Columbia University Apartheid Divest, which is Columbia University's new version of SJP. Again, we filed a lawsuit against him and several others, accusing them of outright material support for terror. But the administration said, look, he has to be deported because regardless of whether or not he did or didn't provide actual material support for terror, he's certainly endorsing and supporting terror, and that is one of the grounds for removal under the Immigration and Nationality Act. And we just had a fairly big win last week when a federal judge said that, yeah, he could be deported.
Mm-hmm. After a lower court judge said he couldn't be, right? We have a lot of very highly activist judges in this area, don't we?
Right, and to bring it full circle, by the way, as soon as the judge said that he could be deported, our old friend Mayor Mamdani put out a statement saying that he needs to remain free. Again, his constitutional illiteracy is maxed only by his reflexive disregard for Jewish rights.
No, you're right. It's a complete hack. Keep up the great work, my friend Mark. Goldfeder. You ought to check him out. Check out his organization, National Jewish Advocacy Center. You're keeping your eye on this guy, and that's great. Thank you, Mark.
The Mark Levin Show, where the Reagan Coalition meets every day. Call now, 877-381-3811.
Let us go to Larry, Roberts, Illinois, XM Satellite. Larry, how are you, my friend?
Mark, I'm fine. I wish that I could say this a nice way. I'm glad that Don Lemon showed what kind of a dipstick he is by invading that church in Minnesota.
It was sickening.
I'm so glad you prefaced me with the synagogue that was being invaded. These people actually went into the church and demonstrated, and I like the idea of getting the names of every one of them and suing them.
Listen, I have a 3-point plan in addition to all the criminal stuff, which can get bogged down, which is civil lawsuits. Number one, I mentioned this, I think, last week. Number one, asset forfeiture. If there's an automobile, some other vehicle that's in the way, and they're blocking, seize the vehicle, forfeit it, and sell it. That's number one, because it's a violation of federal law. Number two, ensure that each ICE agent or law enforcement official who's out there, if they are in any way assaulted, and assault actually doesn't have to be a physical assault, it can be the belief in the fact that you're going to be physically assaulted. People don't know that in most states, but whichever. Make sure that they can bring an individual civil action, certainly for pain and suffering. There's enough slip and fall precedent out there, and we should make sure that they have the lawyers. Justice should make sure to do that, as far as I'm concerned. And number three, the federal government can bring a civil cause of action if any federal property is damaged, whether it's a courthouse or whether it is a vehicle or whatever it is. So when you make these people pay, when you make their families pay, when you bring these cases against them, it has a significant impact. They like smiling for the pictures when they're arrested and so, okay, well, smile for this. We just took your bank account, we took your car, and you're going to have to sell most of your personal property in order to pay for this, for the damage you did and the pain and suffering. What do you like of my 3-point plan?
I like that idea. Can I throw one more thing out at you?
Absolutely.
Are you familiar with what a Kenworth is? Or a Peterbilt?
A what?
It's a semi tractor.
No.
You know, they like to stop us when we're going to work or something, and they think it's okay to run over an ICE agent. I think it'd be
I know,
okay.
we can't use tractors to run over them, but thank you for your call. I'm being quite serious about options that are available and should be available to the agents themselves as well as to the DHS, the Department of Justice, and so forth and so on. I'm quite serious about this. Let's go to Mike, Dallas, Texas, on the Mark Levin app. Mike, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm better than I deserve, man. First time, long time.
Good Yantif.
You got this?
I stopped you with that one. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I
Good,
said first
good.
time, long time. I have an
Thank
idea
you,
on Iran.
thank you.
Okay, so the idea is obviously the Iranian people are unarmed.
Right.
And so providing them arms is not going to be an easy task because they all could fall in the wrong hands.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was thinking is if we could find some of these outskirt communities outside of Tehran where they're actually, planning these protests, maybe we could actually, covertly fly in some arms to these people. It would
I don't
have
have
to
any
be
problem with that. I have a better idea. Why don't we take some of our ordinance and drop it on their heads? Meaning the regime. See, my attitude is this. They will know, we will know through our intelligence services, satellites, the Israelis will know as well, and others will know, some of the Arab countries that might actually help us. We will know which units do what, because they tend to have the same locations when they bring them out to attack the citizenry and so forth. And so, look, you and I were pedestrians, but I would target those. I'd blow them off the face of the earth. I'd make sure I could find out where Khomeini is. I'd certainly do everything we possibly could. If he's in one or two or three places, I would obliterate them, wipe them off the face of the earth. I would do things that are aimed at the head of the snake, I don't have any problem with what you're saying, but I would want to take out the regime. And when the regime is basically one guy, maybe a handful of guys, I mean, the Israelis blew off like 14 of their top nuclear scientists. I bet they have a lot of information they can share with us, and I bet we have it ourselves, too. I think that's what we do. We got to take out this old man. Enough is enough. Thank you for your call, my friend. Let's see here. Let me go, before we do go to anybody else. This Abigail Spanberger, she runs as a moderate. She wants to now, they all want to run for president over. This guy Shapiro talks about how he was interviewed by the people around Harris and so forth, and they wanted to know if he was an Israeli spy, Mr. Producer. That's very important to know if he's an Israeli spy. I can guarantee he's not an Israeli spy. You know why? Here's a Jewish guy that does everything humanly possible to distance himself from his faith. No, he says he should. No. Does everything humanly possible. Ever hear him talk about Israel? Ever hear him talk about Netanyahu? Ever hear him talk about any of this stuff? Plus, he gives $5 million to one of the most radical Muslim mosque, quote-unquote, activity centers in the city of Philadelphia or the outskirts of Philadelphia. This guy's a quizzling. He's a phony and a fraud. Fetterman is 10 times better than Shapiro, and they don't even like each other. Now you know why. Fetterman's the real deal, and Shapiro's a fraud. He is a fraud. Now, that said, the fact they asked him if he was an Israeli spy or if he's a spy for Israel, that's pretty amazing. Because I thought Doofus's husband, Dougie, I thought he was an Israeli spy, Mr. Producer. Isn't he Jewish? Yeah. Did she ask him when she was dating him? Look, Dougie, look me in the eye. Yes, look me in the eye. No, Dougie looks cross-eyed to me. Doesn't he to you, Rich? Looks a little cross-eyed to me. So he's thinking, which eye? You know, my left eye to your left eye, or what am I doing? Anyway, I could see them sitting there having some quiche, maybe, something like that. And she says to him, I really like you. Well, thank you. I really like your babies. I like you too. I know, I really do. Oops. Are you a spy for Israel? Funny you should ask me that. No. Are you? No. I'm just another self-hating Jew who is a radical leftist. Feel bad for Hamas and so forth and so on. But they would ask Shapiro. They were never going to take Shapiro. She figured she had the Jewish vote locked up. She wanted Michigan, and she figured, I got to get Dearbornistan. If I bring on a Jew, I won't get a single Muslim vote out of that town. That's what she's looking at. So, she's a bigot, in other words. So what did she do? She picked the whitest guy in the country, Mr. Producer. Now, my wife will tell you there's 40 shades of white. Yeah, but they picked eggshell white, if you know what I mean. Eggshell white. And the dumbest guy, so he wouldn't outshine her because she's the dumbest gal. She figured I'll pick the dumbest guy, the dumbest eggshell white guy, and I'll look like a superstar compared to that guy. So she picks this guy, Waltz. But Shapiro, she picked Shapiro. it's, oh my God, I'm going to lose, that absolutely important Islamist vote. And let me tell you, that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Because it's not long from today when Islam's going to be the second biggest religion in the United States. Did you know that, Rich? And it happened overnight. Overnight. All right, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So, Mr. Producer, open your microphone a second. How do you fire the coach of the Bills, who's a great coach, for a horrendous call by the refs? How do you fire a coach for that?
I don't get it. Horrendous call. Horrendous.
It was, and what? And this coach gets them into the playoffs like every year.
Someone should.
And they have a great team. They're really on the precipice of maybe going all the way. But that was so horrendous. The whole world saw it. And then you fire the coach for the Ravens, who's a great coach. The guy misses a three-pointer. You can't coach that. When somebody's choking or the wind's blowing, and they fire Harbaugh. And, of course, the Giants pick him up quickly and make him a super-duper multimillionaire. How stupid was that? I mean, who are they going to put in there?
Agreed. Very dumb.
I don't get it. And your Pittsburgh Steelers, I like the Steelers. Not my favorite team, but I like them. And the coach resigned. I think he should have. He's been there 19 years. There's not a lot of energy in the tank, in my humble opinion, but he's a very, very nice man, as a matter of fact. But they haven't built anything. It's going to take them 3 or 4 years to build something, isn't it?
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is in the future.
Well, Aaron Rodgers, yes. And then my Eagles, good God. They're either really good or really bad. So what do? They fire all the second-tier coaches. Now, look, I'm not saying they have to fire the top coach. Sirianni is actually pretty good. If they want to keep him, that's fine. But the offensive coach, he's no good. In the end, it's the coach that coaches. That's the end. It's the coach that coaches. And if you have a really great assistant coach or offense coordinator or something like that, you're going to lose them fairly quickly anyway. So the coach has to be the boss. I just don't see that fixing a whole lot. We'll see. And, I like Hurts a lot, but some days you shake your head and go, what the hell happened? Or, in the case of the game they had, really one of the greatest receivers kept dropping the ball. I won't mention his name. I think he's leaving, but I'm not sure. All right, enough of this already. I think Seattle may wind up with the whole damn thing. You never know. You never know. Okay. Let us go to Catherine, Marion, Virginia, on XM Satellite. How are you, Catherine?
I'm good, Mark. Thank you so much. I just wanted to call and thank you for putting your life on the line to speak truth to the world about what's happening to the good and brave people of Iran. I pray that I know our president will do what he said he'll do. I just hope it's done quickly. And I just wanted you to know that those of us that listen to you and love you, thank you. God bless you for what you do, and I want you to know that we're praying a wall of protection around you and your family.
Thank you.
Of course, our president and President Netanyahu, but yeah, the sooner the better.
Yeah.
I have sons that were all in the military, and of course, they're older now. They've aged out, but they would have in a heartbeat gone. So anyway, again,
where's Marion, by the way? Where's Marion? What's that close to?
Southwest Virginia.
The real Republicans there. You get swamped by Northern Virginia, which is
yes, indeed,
which is really Maryland. To be perfectly honest with you,
we can't seem to vote them out. I was hoping they would, cut us loose from them and let us become either, I don't know, Western Virginia or part of West Virginia.
They'll never let you go. They want your taxes. So she's turned out already to be a radical kook, the Spanberger. That was a very sweet call, Catherine. Thank you very much. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, the men and women in Iran, the Kurds in Syria. The long list is getting longer. And you, the American people, the best. God bless you. See you tomorrow.